my experience is not new, because if you go 4 centuries back, there was this experience of Galileo Galilei, and that's why we call it the Galileo Project. Galileo basically said, if you look through my telescope, you might be convinced that the Earth moves around the sun, that the Earth is not at the center of the world, the way people thought at the time. And philosophers and theologians decided to put him in house arrest. Today, they would have canceled him on social media. They simply wanted his voice not to be heard because it bothered them, because everyone believed that we are at the center of the universe, because that flatters our ego, and so he was put in house arrest, yet he established the foundation for modern science, which follows evidence. Science is supposed to follow data and evidence rather than prejudice, convictions. So I would have thought that we learned an important lesson from that, because we know now that the Earth moves around the sun. We can send the spacecraft that look at the Earth from a distance. So if you were to ask those philosophers to design a spacecraft that would reach Mars, they would never be able to do that, because they thought that Mars moves around the Earth, so that they would never reach the destination. So reality is whatever it is. It doesn't matter what people say. There is a reality out there, and the Earth moves around the sun. And it doesn't matter if you put Galileo in house arrest. It doesn't matter whether you cancel him. It doesn't matter what you say. The truth is out there. And if you want to be intelligent, you better adapt to the reality that surrounds you rather than dismiss it and follow your ego. So I would have thought that by now we would learn the lesson, but apparently we didn't, because whenever there is new evidence that is anomalous, like in the case of Oumuamua or these meteors, scientists today in academia behave just like those philosophers 4 centuries ago. They basically suppress the evidence. They don't want it to appear anywhere. They say, oh no, there must be a lot of uncertainties. We don't know really. They don't want to look through the telescope. In my case, the equivalent of that is when I'm raising funds to pursue a scientific inquiry into the nature of Oumuamua-like objects or the meteors. It's just doing science, trying to collect more data, more evidence. For that, I get pushback, even though the money comes from the private sector, from donations. It's not taken away from any other project. Yet scientists feel an obligation to dismiss it. Now, why would that be the case? After all, I'm just trying to collect data in an agnostic way, and the data may be very significant for the future of humanity, because if we do discover that we are not the smartest kid on our cosmic block, it would change our aspirations for space. It would change our religious and philosophical beliefs. So why is it that people push back? Well, first of all, among peers within academia, there is jealousy. So if a subject could have important implications, people have tendency to step on any flower that rises above the grass level. If you see something that is unexpected, unusual, very significant, you want to step on it so that nobody would get more credit than you do as an expert in the field. The second tendency, aside from jealousy, which is a very fundamental emotion, you find it in academia everywhere. Out of jealousy, people just want to suppress anything innovative so that another person would not get credit. That is a very fundamental emotion. And then the second thing that operates is experts. When you are an expert, you worked for decades to establish a reputation and a status in your field, that you know a certain body of knowledge, that you have pride in what was discovered until now, and you want to explain anything that comes along with the past knowledge that we have. So if there is something completely new that is an outlier, that doesn't fit the paradigm, you have a problem with that because it threatens your ego. Here is something that your past knowledge cannot explain. You don't want it to exist, okay? You want it to go away. It reminds me of, there was a lecture about Oumuamua at Harvard University, and when I left the room after the lecture, a colleague of mine who worked on rocks for decades said, Oumuamua is so weird, I wish it never existed. And to me, that illustrates the point that experts want to, if they studied rocks in the sky, they explained every object in the sky as a rock. They want everything in the sky to be a rock from now to perpetuity, because that would establish their self-esteem in the sense of knowing how to explain anything we find based on past knowledge. So that is a very bad quality for science.